Brian just said, Mr. Harbison, who I don't know, but he was very helpful for us this year when we went to Haiti. I will tell you that on most of our trips, we seek out the Rotarians in whatever country we're in, and the highest group of Rotarians we ever found was at 15,000 feet up in the Andes in a town called Puno, and tried breathing at 15,000 feet in the air. That was tough. But they had a Rotarian dinner for us, and it was very nice, and Brian exchanged his flag, and we were treated very well. The most peculiar Rotarian, I think, dinner that we attended was in Nigeria. I can't remember the town, but they were very cordial with us. You just had to put your war paint on and all and participate in their dinner. But it's been very interesting with the help from Rotary and Rotary International. So I thank all the Rotarians really very much. This year we went to Haiti, and I don't want to spoil Dr. Karamanoukian's talk, but it was a very interesting trip, and we did a lot of surgery, and I think we helped a lot of people. So without any further ado, Dr. Karamanoukian, it's yours.
I think Dr. Meilman covered pretty much everything, but I have to admit that the Rotarians have been very helpful. You recall in Ecuador, we were in one of the most fanciest homes that was owned by a Rotarian. It looked like a museum. It was all glass. It had retention walls that were 3 times higher than the house itself to ward off all the bad people that are trying to get in there. But it was that gentleman was a dentist who was very helpful in allowing us to get into the hospital and outside of Quito. And also they threw a very nice dinner for us at a yacht club, if you remember, outside on a lake in Quito. But this year as well in Las Cayas, Haiti, the Rotarians were helpful in making some connections with the local authorities so that we can do our operations. But my first trip was to Guatemala approximately 12 years ago when I was in training, when I went with Dr. Elliot Rosenkrantz, who was a congenital heart surgeon at Children's. And I didn't realize at the time, because I wasn't involved in organizing a trip, as to how much work it took. But the mentality in a lot of these countries is to take supplies there, but you realize once the supplies are there, half of them are missing by the time they get to the hospital. So we were very much involved in unloading the trucks, the heart-lung machines, and loading them back up, and making sure that we guarded all this stuff. People tend to hoard things, like squirrels hoard nuts, but they don't know what to do with it. They just see something that's not locked or chained to the ground, and they take it, whether or not it's helpful to them or their community. So, but since I've been involved with Dr. Meilman's organization, I realize how much work is involved. And I want to thank Michelle Patterson, because she does a lot of the groundwork in getting these trips organized. It is a lot of work. We appreciate everything that Rotarians do and everybody in the community that helps in terms of financial support, and also the securing the passports and finding hospitals and finding a need. And believe it or not, it's a lot of work to find patients, and find appropriate patients, and find types of patients that we are able to do, because we have to make a decision from a surgical standpoint as to whether or not we can do operations and then leave the country and safely allow the local physicians to take care of them afterwards. So that takes a lot of judgment. Dr. Meilman spends good 6 or 8 months of the year screening patients, not only in plastic surgery, but also for us, for our types of patients. And it's a lot of work, and we really appreciate that. And most of the time, people that come to our foundation dinners and so on don't realize how much work there is behind the scenes. It takes a whole year to set up these meetings, and when we arrive at most of these hospitals, there's usually anywhere between 300 to 500 patients waiting outside of the hospital, trying to scramble to get in, and it's a lot of effort. The first couple of days we go in, we screen the patients that have been screened on the internet. Sometimes there's a lot of information that's lost when they send files and pictures, and we have to make sure that patients we operate on are well taken care of afterwards. And the 4 trips that I've been on, we haven't had any problems, and my understanding is that's the case. And so it takes a lot of surgical judgment, which is as important as the technical part of the operation. But we had a very successful trip the last couple of times that I've been on. This past one was in a very chaotic environment, needless to say, because of the earthquake in Haiti. The Rotarians were very helpful in allowing us to secure this hospital, to secure 2 operating rooms. They hadn't seen a general surgeon do an elective operation there in the last 7 years, from what I understand.
That's correct.
And we did overall with the 7 physicians nearly 200 operations. Just if I have another, I know there's another speaker, but just to give you an idea of the types of things that we saw, both Dr. Meilman and I had to put our surgical hats on and do some general surgery and help a resident who came from New York, who was grateful enough to spend a week with us and operate. So we saw, for example, hernias that were this big. The types of hernias that you would see are things that you only see in textbooks in America. I mean, these are things that, for example, this one gentleman that Dr. Meilman and I did, I helped him in debriding this thing. I'll explain it to you in a minute. And then Dr. Meilman helped in the reconstruction of this man's, genitalia and scrotum afterwards. Because in America, for example, if you had a testicular torsion where your testicle twists on itself and cuts off its blood supply within an hour and a half, if you're not in the operating room, it's almost malpractice. This gentleman had suffered something months and months before he came in. He had in fact torted his testicle, cut off its blood supply, bled into the testicle because it infarcted. It turned into an abscess. It was this big. And that is one of the most exquisitely painful things that you can imagine that anyone could have. And he had lived with it, and when we asked him, can you recall when this happened, he had no idea. He said, a lot of things were happening. I was just focused on taking care of my family. So the general surgeon trained this abscess. I helped him out because he was a resident. And then Dr. Meilman had to reconstruct his whole, I don't want to get too graphic here, but his whole scrotum and do his plastic surgical reconstructive miracle and put this guy together. So that was one of the biggest cases we did, and that patient we followed through with, and he's done very well. The other thing we did is both of us took a local surgeon under our wings and taught him to do some soft tissue tumors and stuff like that. A lot of amazing things that you don't really see, like sarcomas, which are fleshy tumors that are very rare in the United States. There was a lot of those types of patients. Tumors on the shoulder, on the back. Most of the things we see here are like fatty tumors. These are real sarcomas. And we did a lot of those types of resections. And Dr. Meilman helped reconstruct and close these big defects in the skin. We had another plastic surgeon, and we had an anesthesiologist, Dr. Buchman. That's from Mount St. Mary's Hospital, who's also very, it was great for him to come. Some of the procedures were done under local anesthesia, like the types of things that I did. And most of the things that they did were done under general anesthesia. The only types of procedures they were doing there, is, if I recall correctly, Dr. Meilman can add to this, is emergency C-sections, I think, and some gynecological things that were emergencies. But beyond that, all the physicians were, well, nobody had seen a physician there who was doing elective surgical cases for 7 years. So there is a big need, and a lot of the times I'm asked, like, how come we're going to other countries when there's a big need here? But I don't think you've seen poverty until you go to a place like Haiti. It's really devastating. It's sad to see the conditions that these people are living in. And I think our poorest patients here still have very good health care, equivalent to what you might get in a hospital setting in an emergency situation. I really believe in that. And maybe Dr. Meilman can comment to that, but it's overall, hopefully you'll never see anybody in your lifetime that has been struck by devastating, natural disasters like that. But it is, I imagine Katrina was similar to this. But I think overall, we thank the Rotarians and specifically the gentleman here, John Harbison, who helped us. I would have liked to meet him, but they opened up doors for us, and that's very helpful when you go to a country like that. So thank you for your support, and hopefully we can go again next year. We're planning on going to Armenia, and again, there's a country that has a lot of needs, and we'll update you in the future as to our trip. But I want to thank Dr. Melman for bringing me into the organization. It's really amazing when you look, 2,500 cases is a lot of cases. If you put things in perspective, most busy surgeons don't do more than 300 or 400 cases a year. So, that's a lot of cases that have been done and have been done very safely in situations where I imagine in Nepal and places like in Africa, Tanzania, where birds are flying into the operating rooms and there's no gloves, and we basically have to take everything with us and leave everything there. And in this mission, we were successful in training somebody to continue the work, and I think that's another positive thing. And I'm going to let him say a couple of things about the students, because that was something that he added on this trip, which is very helpful. Students from local colleges. Thank you very much. I know it took so much time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'll just add one word about students. We've tried to expand our vision, and we're bringing into our trips and all now students who have a bent for medicine, not medical students, but pre-medical students really at this point. And they're not sure what they want to do. They go on a trip like this, they put gloves on, they assist the surgeons in the operating rooms, and they can make up their mind as to whether medicine is something that they'd like to do in the rest of their life, or maybe they're pursuing the wrong career. So we had 5 or 6 such students this year with us in Haiti, and 2 of the girls, but again, they're young, they're in their early 20s, but said it's changed their lives, and this is the kind of thing that they would like to do. So we've applied for some grant money, and maybe that will come through, and we can bring the students on our trips frequently. That hospital, I thought, in Haiti would be perfect to go back once or twice every single year with the students and work in that hospital. It's close to the United States, it's easy to get to, and it looked like they were receptive to this kind of thing. So at any rate, I guess the bottom line is if that hospital works out, thank you to this Rotarian who isn't here tonight, but we shake our finger at him. It may work out tremendously for everyone. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah, a little horseradish, please.
Dr. Mallory, in relation to contacting Rotary clubs, if you need any help with that, we'd be glad to help you. I mean, there's an international directory, and if you know where you're going, we could possibly put you in touch with those clubs.
Very nice.
Is there a reason why you haven't joined the Rotary Club? And the reason why I ask is because we do have matching grant programs that might further your cause. Not to say that Rotary isn't working anyways, but I mean,
I was hoping there would be room in Grand Island. Thank you. I do very much. Yeah.
Dr. Milam, in this country, we talk about, we worry about malpractice and the legal aspect. How do you handle that going to these firms?
Well, that's a very important point, and I'll just go through it quickly for you. There is almost no possible coverage for any physician, surgeon, nurse going abroad to be protected. We're looking into that now through Lloyd's of London. as a matter of fact. But it isn't just our group, it's all the groups. Project Smile and whatever else you may have heard of, there is nothing. So if a mishap should happen, the word is somehow before you get to the airport, the authorities have to be reimbursed between $10,000 and $50,000, and then you're free to leave that country. That's what I'm told internationally, to answer your question. Thank you.
And there's a point that if you did join Rotary,
Yeah.
we're insured. Okay. And if you're a Rotarian and you're doing a project for Rotary, you might be able to have insurance. It would be interesting to see if it could stretch that far. We could check into that.
How do you pick the countries that you're going to next?
Well,
And how do you coordinate with other groups of doctors from Europe and Canada and US who are also doing the same thing as you are?
I can't steal the thunder. The gentleman who's sitting right next to you is the wizard behind all of this and arranges the trips for us. And I give Brian Rusk a lot of credit for doing that. But to answer your question from my point of view, we hear from international groups like Project Hope, for instance, or like the Vatican, or
The White House.
the church groups, or Caritas was one.
And the White House. And the White
The
House.
White House. I mean, these things filter in, and we hear that they'd like us to go to these places. So we look into them. If we can't get a hospital, like if Haiti wouldn't have been able to come up with a hospital for us, we couldn't have gone. That kind of thing. So we get that information, and we have a list of places that would like us to go. This young lady's been in contact with somewhere in South America that's begging us to go there. No,
Paraguay.
Paraguay. Somebody there, they had some kind of natural disaster there. They're begging us to go. But the biggest problem is, one, we need the hospital, and two, it's very hard for me to make Dr. Karamanoukian leave his practice for a week and still pay his staff and all the things he has to pay, and then go and work. But there, I guess to answer your question, there seems to be no shortage of places to go.
Thanks.
Anything else? I'd like just to make a comment that we have, for the past, this year will be the third year of our tango dance, the third year. And basically it started out with a initiative with Nepal. Haiti.
It's always been there.
Okay. Just that Dr. Johnson has basically, Dr. David Johnson has basically been the initiative or the impetus behind that fundraiser. And in our overall picture of what we're going to be looking at for 2011 and 2012, the tango has really been something that's been up in the air as far as whether we want to continue with that tango or something else, but the initiative itself may be something that we want to talk to David about, Dr. Johnson, and kind of put him in,
All right, to answer, I love David Johnson, and he's done a marvelous thing in the town. I know the hospital that he's built with apparently Rotary and Health, et cetera, and I think it's tremendous. The only way that we differ is we're not putting our energy into buildings and cement.
Yep,
and
yep,
that kind of-
right.
We're operating on all these.
right. The hospitals have to be pretty much, or the facilities have to be pretty much in place. Yeah, I understand. But what I'm kind of getting at is even something that we may be able to help support through that initiative. Dr. Johnson still has, well, I know for a fact, he's already put in for some funds for increasing the Haiti and Nepal initiative. But there again, we need to look at other things, and this is definitely, as far as I'm concerned, is something that we need to talk about, let's say. And I applaud you, I really do, and both actors and Melissa, as far as the amount of time and effort. And I've often thought about Haiti as, and listening to John Harbison, he is, and I think he lives, eats and sleeps Haiti. There's no question about it. He is, I don't know where he gets all his initiative to do that, where he gets his resources. But anyway, I really do believe that we have to get our members together and talk about how we can continue to assist you. Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
That being said, let's enjoy our meal, and unless anybody's got anything else, I mean, don't hesitate to stand up and we'll finish the meal and we're done. Thank you.
Thank you.